It's Daybreak here on the Rise News. Time for the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Let's take a look at This Day, our sister publication. Its leading headline, Tinubu, we need not worry about PDP, we're not equals. Two riders there, let's take just two, says opposition party shouldn't exist any longer. Meanwhile, PDP fires back, asks APC candidates to address name, age, and education. And just below that, the photo there, the 10th year remembrance service in honor of Ighodalo. Let's take a look at more headlines. Atiku, September heralds dawn of Nigeria's freedom from APC stronghold. That's on page 6, and just above that, Obi's crowdfunding portals to open next week. Utomi reveals above the nameplate of This Day this morning. Nigeria's average daily petrol supply 68 million litres. That's NNPC clarifying as the reply customs DG says company ready for forensic audit.
Talking oil, the Nation newspaper says NNPC limited petrol to sell for 462 naira per litre without subsidy. Nigeria seeks debt for climate swap deal. And ASU raises 7-man panel to counter smear campaign.
All right, the Punch newspaper. Abakiri NDLEA files 24 charges, seizes 14 mega assets. Agency uncovers shopping malls, others owned by ex-IRT commander. Kyari's deputy Ubua fails to declare 100 million naira life insurance policy. And then just below that headline, you see a picture of a collapsed building, 2 dead, others trapped in Lagos building collapse. When will this end? And then on the topmast, Atiku, note threat to Tinubu. Obi, social media creation. This is from Onanuga, director of the campaign, APC, Tinubu's campaign. NNPC, sorry, let me just get that. I just lost it. Okay. NNPC demands, is it defense 68 million litre daily consumption? Well, let's just leave it there. That's for Punch.
Some international papers this morning. The Eye calling Truss the PM in waiting, says Tory leadership frontrunner Liz Truss expected to be confirmed as UK's next Prime Minister. That's later today. Just beside that, Premier League, King Eric, Man United back on form and a 3-1 win over Arsenal.
The Guardian, and according to our business analyst, Liz Truss set to be announced as next UK PM amid economic mayhem. She's promised action from day one.
Well, the Daily Express. Truss pledges action on energy bills in first week.
And for the press preview, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello, who joins us from our outside studio. Emmanuel, good morning. Let's start with the national dailies. This Day newspaper, 3 headlines here touching on the top 3 contenders for next year's presidential election. Tinubu is saying we need not worry about the PDP. He says the PDP and APC are not equals, so they're not worried about them. And the PDP is firing back, telling the APC to address the issues concerning their presidential candidates' name, age, and education. And just above that, you see the PDP presidential candidate Atiku speaking on the APC and saying Nigeria's freedom from APC stranglehold is this September. And just above that, LP's Labour Party's presidential candidates crowdfunding portals to open next week. We know this crowdfunding has brought about some sort of controversy. Is it legal? Is it illegal? So just touch on these 3 headlines.
Good morning, Kechi. Kenneth, Indy, good morning. It's the start of the working week. And this day is leading with some of the most interesting stories in the papers today. As usual, very strong political stories. It's distinctive journalism on the part of the This Day newspaper. If you look at the other papers and the trajectory or where the attention is going, you will know that This Day is taking the lead in reporting the political reality on ground, and that is the back and forth between the APC and the PDP leadership. And from this story on the front pages, you can see clearly where the direction of the campaigns will be going. While Tinubu, almost comically said he's shocked that PDP is even still there. And that it's not a party that the APC should worry about, and latching back again, because that's the only kind of thing you can say about the PDP now, that you just have to go back to those 16 years and say that, look, it has failed in the past. That's the only talking point that probably is open, the path that is open to the APC as they try to fight back on the PDP onslaught. So that's the leader of the party, the presidential candidate Tinubu, trying to bolster the courage of his people and saying that, look, PDP is not such a huge threat. But maybe he's speaking too soon, because the PDP thinks that he's got a chance now, and that they're going to go after the APC with all the ferocity that they can muster. And one of the areas they're going to deal with, they've started already, is even the person of the presidential candidate, Tinubu himself. They're questioning his age. They're questioning the multiple names, according to the alleged names he's used over the years. They're questioning his record. He will always talk about what he did in industrializing Lagos and all of that. Going into these campaigns, those are the only kind of things that the APC will be saying. PDP has a lot of red meat already on ground in the APC record to fight back, to talk about its its record in security, its record in education, in health. They will continue to touch on that. That will be mostly the kind of campaign strategy that the PDP we actually use. Already articles saying that September this month signifies that kind of freedom, almost seeing it as a case of trying to free Nigerians from the APC. But of course, APC pushing back strongly and saying that they are shocked that the PDP is even still there at all as a party. And that, given the constitution of the APC, the number of governors they have out there, the number, the fact that they've gotten their base together, you agree with me, Nkechi, that the APC seem to be getting its act together. They have a presidential campaign council on ground, and so they believe that, look, the PDP is no match for them, given their structures on ground. But PDP will continue to say that, look, well, you've not done well in those 8 years. Sadly, many people speaking for the APC will have to grapple with that problem, how to convince Nigerians that, look, there are records to show and to actually campaign on. For the obedient crowd, it's about funding. And yes, Nkechi, you noted that story about crowd funding. We say, I think it's legal enough to raise a certain kind of amount, and Peter will be more than any other person, more than anybody that is so excited about him on Facebook or on social media, understands that there's the role of money. Money needs to play a role. So that would be its only drawback. But for popularity, especially on social media, yes, Peter Obi has got a lot of grounds going for him, things going for him there. But he also realized that, look, beyond structures, beyond all that rhetoric, beyond the excitement, there's need for money. So they're opening these portals soon to see whether they can raise the kind of billions that they'll be needing for advertising, for transport, to just tell you that elections are still about the cash.
Well, last week, Emmanuel, This Day said it was too close, the election is still too close to call. Speaking of tussle in the PDP, there's still the Wike itch. And the Nation newspaper is saying hope dims for reconciliation. What's the latest, Emmanuel?
Well, the Nation is becoming authoritative now in its reporting the Wike thing. Some papers this morning totally ignored it and almost pushed on or move on to other things. And that's the reflection of what's happening in the Atiku's camp. They are greatly thinking that, well, there are more rounds of meetings planned for this week. But of course, the Wike people still holding on their grounds and that Ayu must go. And that's the only thing that would pacify them to be part and parcel of what is happening. But so that's where the whole problem is now. It's this talk there. Yes, like you, Kenneth, like you call it, it's the wicked problem that Atiku and his team have to forge on. But yesterday, in those meetings that the APC were having, they're already optimistic that maybe they can just push ahead and see what they can do. They still have a presidential council to be constituted, and this problem, the wicked problem, seems to be what is bogging them down. And we just have few days to go to before the declarations of the opening of campaigns. The fact that the PDP doesn't have a presidential council on ground, one that's the type that the APC authoritatively did, it's a huge problem. And Wike is playing a very, very important role in drawing it back. If they have to find a way around that problem, or it's a problem that they have to, that is going to deal with them going forward.
Stay on the Nation. The bold headline there. NNPC Limited, petrol to sell for 462 naira per litre. Now that's more than 100%, 165 they were selling before. And it has two riders there. Corporation defends 68 million litre daily consumption claim. There's Customs CG Hamid Ali ready for forensic audit. And then just on the top mass towards the left, IG to US government, no threat to next year's election.
Well, yeah, the petroleum bit, because I mean that's the one that concerns a lot of us. I mean, if it's going to sell for that amount because of the fact that the subsidies will be gone, that's one that Nigerians will have to worry about. And you are already talking about the percentage, the jump in how we are getting it now. But a lot of people will say, look, and there are a lot of people who are against the subsidy regime and saying that it's really not, nobody is gaining from it, and everybody is suffering from it, apart from the few people who are really gaining or cashing in on the subsidy regime. So if it goes all together, some people think that that's the pathway we need to go. Of course, this will be the result, the fact that we're going to pay more for the product. But another thing arising from that story is that it's late to raise the issue of how many liters you and I are consuming in this country. The figures in the past have not been so clear. But when the custom, CJ came out and said, look, we're not even sure of how much, and he was quoting some kind of, the amount of liters we consume. NNPC was forced to say, no, we only do some 68 million liters per day. There's been a controversy around how much liters we're consuming, how we're consuming them. And that actually, dovetail into the kind of huge, cost that we see flying about, talking about. But this has laid that to rest. As far as the NNPC is concerned, this is the amount of liters we are using. Now you know the figures, 68 million liters every day. So then, of course, the other issues, the fact that NNPC is thinking that it will go into partnership with Dangote Refinery, seem to be painting a rather better, a day ahead kind of scenario for the oil sector when NNPC begins to work very well, work like a private entity. Though Atiku recently said that as far as it's concerned, the NNPC is still not really privatized as it is. But in this story, it's already talking about the kind of partnership it's going to go with private refineries and to ensure that we have better deals or better gains and we're getting more. Of course, brings up all the other issues around the oil sector that we'll be dealing with, the problem of theft, of bunkering, and all the other issues surrounding. But NNPC seem to be painting a rather rosy picture, better picture, more positive outlook for what the oil market is going to be like, that Nigeria is going to gain more from the market. And with the removal of subsidy next year, which of course the federal government is already talking about mid next year, we'll see how that works out, whether all the arguments against subsidy regime will eventually pan out well for the nation.
Emmanuel, before we let you go, all the UK papers are talking about what's going to happen today. Today is the D-Day. We're expecting a new UK Prime Minister to be announced. And we have even a paper, the I newspaper, calling Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, the PM in waiting. And it's interesting when these two contenders, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, when this race started in July, when Boris Johnson announced his resignation, Rishi Sunak was on top of the media. He was everywhere, and all of a sudden just fell off the conversation. And Liz Truss is everywhere, and now, according to media, set to be announced as Prime Minister later today, 12:30 p.m. local time. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thought is that we won. I mean, those of us that we are secretly rooting for.
I didn't know you were in the race.
Well, I had a horse in the race, and that's the horse there, Liz Truss. But of course, she's coming at a time that the winters are going to be biting hard, and you have that huge energy problem or crisis that she needs to take very, very tough decisions on. Some people thinking that she might not be able to do much. She was part and parcel of the old order of the Boris Johnson years. But of course, she's already talking tough, and that she's going to hit the ground running. There's no time to waste on anything. Remember that this is just a party decision, and the party itself is going to be, they're going to face a much more, harder elections going forward. But for now, all is set. With one of the papers even already calling her PM in waiting. Remember that some other papers in the past have actually called it for her and endorsed her. And now a paper saying clearly that she's the PM in waiting. I think today it's going to be a busy day. Tomorrow there will be those, just the official things around seeing the Queen and all of that. And then, of course, a formal announcement will be made. So whether the UK and the rest of us are in the Truss area already, but she's also offering to do take some real tough decisions around the issue of the energy crisis that the UK is currently facing a serious hardship, with people even have to make decisions on whether they need to heat their home or actually buy food to eat. It's a serious problem, and that she's coming right in the middle of it. It's going to be a case of testing her prowess and all that she has promised during the serious tough campaign between herself and Sunak.
Yes, and if she's announced, she'll be the third UK Prime Minister following Theresa May and Margaret Thatcher. Thank you so much, Emmanuel Bello. That's the press preview.